Hey, we're cooking with gas here on the Jewcast.
Okay, careful using a phrase like that.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
Tradition!
Oh, shut up, Carl! Shut your goddamn Jew mouth! You people are why there's war in the Middle East!
Gekakken af een jam.
Nebbig.
Verpoepoepoe.
Vermischt.
Verkakt.
Vertut.
Verstonken.
Fartig.
Exactly.
You're what Grammy Hall would call a real Jew.
Oh, boy.
Hey, everybody.
Hit me. We're at 21.
We are legal right now, so bring on the Manischewitz, bring on the Kedem, and let's get wasted, because you're listening to episode 21 of American Jew. I'm Jonathan Randall.
I am Jordon Ferber.
And we are American Jewing it up.
Yes, another Jew-packed episode here just for you.
I hope so. I wish we were eating some more Jewish food. A lot of people ask me, they're like, what's your favorite type of food, Jonathan? I always go Jewish soul food, and they're like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, come with me and find out.
Brisket and corned beef. My mom's been making a lot of mandel bread lately.
Oh, really? Your mom makes very good mandel bread.
She makes the best.
That is a very Jewish thing.
Grammy's recipe.
You know, bagels originated from Jews, in Poland. You know, the Jews started making bagels. Do anti-Semites, they shouldn't be bagels. Like, there shouldn't be like a KKK breakfast where there are bagels there. There's no bagels, no schmears.
No schmears.
With anti-Semites. I hope they're not eating bagels.
No whitefish for you.
Just like Jews shouldn't be driving Fords, anti-Semites should not be eating bagels.
Yeah, if they want to be consistent.
All right, let's talk about anti-Semitism.
Yes.
We've talked about it
finally
a lot on our podcast. We've talked about the anti-Semitism that's, happening all over the world. Anti-Semitism's on the rise. It's running rampant. But we haven't talked so much about the history of anti-Semitism. We talked about Ford, one of the biggest anti-Semites of all time. But, anti-Semitism has been around, it seems, forever.
Yeah, since God told us to go live in between all the fucking people who hate us.
The
There's
term...
this small patch of land in between all these Muslim countries that hate the Jews. Hey, you want the Jews to live there?
Anti-Semitism, hatred towards the Jews, has existed before there was a term anti-Semitism.
Right.
So, I guess anti-Semitism, it started, who knows when it started, but like the first kind of notions about anti-Semitism happened in the ancient world, and where I think it was more about like people, like the Jews kept to them kind of themselves. The Jews had their own laws, their own traditions, and I guess the people around, they didn't like that. They thought like, they didn't like the Jews keeping the Sabbath, and they didn't like the Jews like doing circumcision, and they didn't like these things, so they had like an anti-Jewish sentiment.
Is that when they first started shunning us? I feel like we created that community for ourselves because they wouldn't let us into their communities.
No, I don't. You see, from what I understood, it was the difference. We were keeping to ourselves so much, they thought we were like, we're better than you guys. We don't want to be a part of whatever you're doing. We have our own laws. We have our own traditions. We have our own people. We're keeping it amongst the Jews. And the people were kind of like, no, like, who are these Jews? Like, they won't be a part of like our society. So, apparently there's a lot of different types of anti-Semitism. And, we've, I think, talked a lot about on our podcast about what is considered, I guess, the new anti-Semitism, which has to do with Israel and, making criticisms of Israel. The Jewish state is being against the Jewish people. Now, we don't think that's true. There are a lot of critics that don't think it's true, and they think that that's just kind of a thing that, Zionists are using to direct attention from legitimate criticism about Israel by claiming that being anti-Zionist or anti-Israel means that you're anti-all Jews. I don't agree with that. We've talked a lot about that. I think that's doing a disservice to the Jewish people. You can criticize Israel without hating all Jews. So I don't know about that being the new anti-Semitism. I think we gotta get rid of that. But
then there's also the old, the old school anti-Semitism, which has always been around, which it revolves around all the conspiracy theories that the Jews run the media, the Jews run the world, that we have some sort of secret tribunal of people who.
Right. That's kind of like the economic.
Right.
Anti-Semitism, they're saying. They were like, Jews are rich. We're all rich. we're all very stingy and greedy people, you know, that the Jews are very powerful and we totally control the business world, that, you know, our religion emphasizes profit and materialism, that it's okay for Jewish people to cheat non-Jewish people, and that, you know, us Jews kind of use our power to just benefit other Jews. I think this kind of happens with a little bit with what we were talking about with some of the early cases of people not liking Jews. Jews keep for themselves. Jews kind of put Jewish money in other Jewish people. They want to buy from Jews. We have our own community, and I guess that kind of upsets people.
We also don't recruit. Like, we don't push our values on anybody else. I think that's a big thing. Like, we don't make anybody convert. And
a lot of other people do. They want everyone to convert to Christianity or Catholicism. So, I mean, I guess there's different types of anti-Semitism. Like we just mentioned, economic was one of them. Apparently, there's religious anti-Semitism too. That we killed Christ. Us Jews killed Christ, and people are still upset about that. Years later.
What kind of anti-Semitism have you experienced in your life? Have you experienced any? Have you had people that...
nothing too crazy. I mean, maybe like a remark or something, someone yelling something at me, walking a synagogue, but like, I wouldn't say like I've really suffered that bad. I actually think the judgment I've gotten from other Jews has been worse than anti-Semitism that I've received from non-Jews.
Really? Okay. I feel that way to a certain degree as well. I feel like there are people who are very religious that want you to be more Jewish, and they are very judgmental. Like when I was dating a black girl, I was out with Alexis. We were at just walking around the neighborhood, and these Jews came up to me and told me that I should get myself a nice Jewish girl. I was like, actually, she's more Jewish than I am.
Hey, there you go. You know, again, people just want to judge. There are plenty of African-American Jews.
Yeah. Well, she isn't one of them, but I was trying to. But even so,
but she loved to eat. She loved Jordon's matzo balls. Yeah. So there's also, I guess, social anti-Semitism, which is kind of like the Jews were inferior people. You know, were pushy, and that, you know, they want to exclude us, you know. I guess that has to do with a lot of like restricted country clubs and people not wanting Jews around. You know, there's just racist anti-Semitism where people refer to Jews as a race of people. They don't like it. People, you know, think that our ideology is bad, that we're subversive, that we're revolutionary. And then, of course, like we were talking about, there's the cultural Judaism that we're regarded as kind of like trying to like undermine society and civilization and like control it or whatever. Like,
so I mean,
there's a lot of hatred going our way.
I mean, I've read a lot about that stuff, but I wonder how much of it of that kind of stuff have I really experienced in my personal life? Do you know what I mean? Like, I haven't felt like there are people pushing those ideas at me about Judaism. I mean, in America, it's, you know, and in New York.
Well,
sure,
we live in New York City. Yes, that's for sure.
You know, we have almost all the Jews here, so it's hard. You know, and you're from Florida, where the rest of them are.
Yes, I'm a very East Coast Jew.
So I think, you know, in those two areas that, you know, where we have a lot of the Jews, there's probably a lot less anti-Semitism, or at least overt anti-Semitism.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure if we go to like middle of bumblefuck America and we were walking around with yarmulkes, you know, in a small town, I'm sure we probably would receive more anti-Semitism. Yeah. You know, anti-Semitism has definitely evolved and changed from, you know, people making statements, people writing stuff in newspapers or false books, to people going into synagogues and shooting up the place, you know? So there's a lot of different anti-Semitism. A lot of people are mad at the Jewish people right now because of what's happening in Israel, because of Palestine and the Palestinians. And then there are people that just don't like the Jews because, yeah, they think we're money-hungry, greedy people, that we're controlling the world. This Elders of Zion bullshit that's just not true. So it's hard to define what anti-Semitism really is because there are so many different, like, facets of it. Yeah, it's crazy.
I feel like there are ignorant people out there who use any one of those things to sort of rationalize whatever their belief is, you know, whatever their crazy thoughts about it are. They'll find something else and cherry pick some stuff from there to, you know, uphold their opinion.
For sure. And, you know, I mean, I think the Jewish people are probably some of the most exclusive of the religions, kind of, where, you know, we really want to keep it. We want to keep it Jew. We don't want to assimilate. You know, we have very different traditions. Our religious beliefs, you know, are, you know, the Sabbath, circumcision, the things that we do, they're not like, they could seem very strange to people. Even today, you know, you see Jews walking around with, like, you know, these crazy long black outfits and these furry hats
in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, and you're like, what is wrong with these people? Who are these people? You know, we keep to ourselves. We're kind of separate, and that's kind of a turnoff, I guess, for a lot of people.
If I ever see that happening, if I ever see somebody yelling at a bunch of Orthodox Jews walking to temple in the summer, it's like, come on, look at them. They're already suffering enough. How many layers they're wearing?
That's very true.
It's a lot. Have you ever been? Then there's the Black Israelites. Have you ever encountered the Black Israelites?
I mean, I've walked by them on many occasions.
Have you ever tried to have a conversation with?
Not really. I kind of am like, let's not get involved.
Because
with this.
That to me is like one of the most fucked up versions of anti-Semitism that there is. Like, that's more than just Jew on Jew hatred.
But they just hate all white people.
They hate everybody.
They hate everybody except for the people that are standing with them.
But you can't have a conversation with them. They will not respond to anything specifically that you ask them. They will.
I haven't tried to engage them in conversations, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I don't think I want to.
I mean, they consider themselves to be the only true Jews. That's what they're.
I mean, that's crazy.
That's
you
what their
know,
point is.
It's so weird because everyone admits that, like, most religious people about the Old Testament, that it was a thing. You know, that it's a religious document. It was the Jews. It's like, you think we would get along more and be like, hey, like we used to be you guys, and then we turned into Christians or whatever. But, you know, talk about a grudge. I think the Jews being involved in the death of Jesus, whether it's fact or fiction, people are really holding on to that.
Well, you know, I'll tell you this too. If you read the Old Testament, and God is definitely a dick. Like,
he's very harsh. We're supposed to be his people. He's supposed to love us.
Yeah.
He's supposed to want to help us, and he really kind of gives us a hard time, like, all the time.
Anything sets him off. Any infraction, and you can be put to death.
Yeah.
But apparently, to rebel, his son is like the nicest guy in the fucking world. You can't do anything to get him to blow up at you.
Right? He's all about forgiveness.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Turn another cheek. I mean, they really changed it. I mean, I could see how Jesus is more appealing to. Yeah, Jesus is a much nicer guy. I'd rather be hanging out with Jesus. He's, you know, turning water into wine and making bread and fish from heads and stuff. And our guy is being like, oh, you didn't do what I say, 40 more years in the desert, or I'm killing you.
What are you, picking up sticks on Saturday? You get to die today, buddy.
Well, that's what happens in this week's Torah portion, right?
Yes. This week's Torah portion is a little fire and brimstone God stuff happening here. Right? It's the Shalach is this week's portion.
Is that the name of it?
Shalach.
Again, we got the
well,
going.
There's always
not a great name.
No. So yeah, Moses sends 12 spies into the land of Canaan.
Into Canaan, because we want to expand. We want to go places.
Yeah,
and
we
they go and they check it out, and they come back with fruits, and they're like, "It's awesome there, except there are giants, and we're not going to be able to take them on and kill them. Like, they're too scary." Right, and then the Jews start complaining again.
Well, first of all, there are two guys that say, no, actually, I think we could beat them the way God says we could, but the way God has told us. But the rest of them are like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm going with 10 instead of the 2.
Yeah, that's when the Jews start complaining, like, fuck, we should never have left Egypt. We had it pretty good there.
I don't know why they would start complaining.
All
like,
this free
why
fish.
haven't we learned? Just, like, don't complain. God, like, it's like God keeps messing with us, and, like, it's like we don't learn our lesson. The Jews don't learn their lessons.
So God sees us complaining, talking about we should have never left Egypt. He's like, oh, really? Well, how about this? 40 more years in the desert for you. And that by the time that you guys will die, the people that come up, the younger generation will understand.
Yeah, he wants all the people that were complaining to die out before we get to go to Israel or our Holy Land or whatever, get a whole nother mess of problems by going somewhere.
Right, and then, then God talks about some of his rules again about how to make challah bread and.
Okay, yeah, like my dad always did that growing up when we did the prayers on Friday night and Saturday for the challah hamotzi. He would cut off a little piece of the bread. And I guess that's like with everything. God wants a piece of what you do. God is almost like the government wanting the American government wanting taxes. It's like, hey, part of that's for me, the rest is for you. So even with the bread, he wants us to cut off a little piece. That's for him. He wants us to wear the seats,
right?
The four corners, because he wants us to always have him on our mind, even though I would have him on my mind because I'm terrified of what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Picking up sticks. He's murdering people. You can't do that on the Shabbat.
That's the craziest part, is that breaking the law of the Sabbath is punishable by death.
You know, it's crazy that, like, God has killed so many of us Jews. He didn't care if you were Moses' nephew. He didn't care what you did, and we're still like, we're still like spitting in his face. Like when do the Jews learn? Like when are we gonna get to the Torah portion where like, and the Jews figured out that if they cross God, it's not going to work out well for them, and they started being on their best behavior, and God said, hey, I really appreciate it. You guys are cool. Let me help you out. I'm just going to teleport you to the land of Israel, and I'm not going to make it that everybody hates you for the rest of time for having it. And we're all going to live happily ever after.
Well, I think that if you look at like the American Jewish stereotype now, the Nebuchadnezzar neurotic, ultimately we've become better litigators than boxers. We shy away from a fight because God will hit you.
Well, what Max Baer? He was a boxer.
I know
right?
there are Jewish boxers out there, but I'm just saying.
But a lot more Jewish lawyers.
But more, yeah. I don't know who his manager was.
And doctors.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything from this portion that you really take away as a thing that we should be living with today?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on again with this book, but we're still in the desert. Now it's another 40 years. Again, 40. This number that always keeps popping up. It's like it's God's go-to number. Nope, 40.
Yeah,
40 days.
God is basically like stalling to figure out what the next chapter is going to be. You know what? In 40 years, I'll tell you what's next.
We'll figure it out in 40. Always a good 40.
That's it for this week. I think we held it down for 21.
I don't know how to combat anti-Semitism anymore because I think it's like thou does protest too much, and the more we try to do it, the more we're going to receive.
Yeah.
Jews aren't horrible people.
I'm just saying, you read these Torah portions, and it's like, who hates the Jews more than God? It seems like
you're absolutely right.
You know?
No one has done more against the Jewish people than our own God. Anyways, check us out on social media. We're at American Jew Podcast on everything except for Twitter. We're at American Jew Pod. Email us, AmericanJewPodcast@gmail.com. My name is Jonathan Randall, and you can find me on Instagram at Jonathan Randall.
And my name is Jordon Ferber. You can find me on the gram at Beatnik Nudnik. Oi.
We hope everybody has a great Shabbat.
Goodbye, everybody.